What is going on, guys? Jack here and welcome back to another video. Today I have for you guys a Dirty Bomb loadout review, and well, this isn't going to be your normal loadout review because today we're going to be taking a look at 3 brand new Obsidian cards which were added to the game by Splash Damage this week. They're available for a limited time. We have one for Arty, one for Fletcher and one for Stoker. And well, in this video I want to give you guys my general thoughts on these loadouts, just some opinions, you know, maybe sway you as to which cards you might want to get if you're only going to get one of them. I will start off this video by saying that some of this is very much subjective, so this is just my thoughts on these loadout cards. I hope you do enjoy the video. Leave a like if you do, and well, without further ado, let's get into the first loadout card, which is going to be Arty's B73 Standard Rifleman. So as I mentioned, guys, there are 3 loadout cards. Here is the first. It's Arty, and well, it's not the Arty we know and love. He's changed. He looks badass. He looks war-hardened. He's got sunglasses on. And I will say now, I'm going to be showing you guys both the loadout card, as you can see in front of you now, but also how the kind of camos and the arms and stuff look in game. Of course, loadout cards, they look fantastic, but when you're playing in the first person, there's only so much you see, really. So I want to give you guys kind of a well-rounded view of this loadout card, both in and out of game. And well, let's take a look at his augments and weapons. And well, starting with the weapons, Arty has the BR16. It's a very good weapon. It's a burst fire rifle, a weapon type that is very strong in Dirty Bomb right now in terms of damage output on the burst fire weapons. The BR16 and Stark, definitely Arty's go-to weapons. For him to have one of those is a very good start to this loadout. Unfortunately, the Cooldown pistol, not the best pistol for Arty. The M9, perhaps the strongest that he has access to, but nevertheless, it's an okay secondary. I feel like secondaries, they're not too needed with someone like Arty. Of course, you're not going to be running out of ammo because you can give yourself ammo packs, and it's very rare, perhaps compared to some other mercs, you'll ever be relying on that secondary. Anyway, moving on to the augments, he's got quick draw, 30% faster weapon switching. It's kind of useful on Arty when it comes to switching to the artillery strikes, but with the exception of that, as I said, you're not going to be switching weapon all that often. Enigma is a very situational augment, reducing the duration of time being spotted by 60%, and focus reduces flinching by 30%, which is actually fairly useful, particularly when aiming down sights. I find myself with Arty at times challenging snipers and trying to call in artillery strikes at distance, and actually focus can kind of come in useful if you do need to go into that head-to-head gunfight at range. Anyway, in terms of this actual loadout and my general thoughts on it, it's not a bad loadout by any means. The primary weapon is useful, of course. Primary weapons generally are fairly subjective, but burst fire weapons are statistically very strong right now. Unfortunately, the augments is kind of where this loadout falls apart for me. Arty's B73 Rifleman, it's a good loadout, but it's missing 2 kind of augments which are readily available on a number of other perks which really up his kind of utility significantly. The first of those is Unshakable, which of course reduces damage taken from explosives, but the big one is Explodedendron, which of course increases blast radius by 10%. It's very, very useful on Arty strikes, both for attacking EVs and objectives, but also for if you want to try and get a cheeky kill on a merc from range. And when you have a loadout card like the D43, which has both of the perks, Unshakable and Explodedendron that I mentioned, it kind of trumps the B73 in a number of different ways, and for that reason, whilst it's a good loadout card, and if you love the aesthetics, I'm sure you're going to get it like I have, but in reality, there are simply better cards out there that kind of better suit Arty's style of play. Anyway, guys, the next loadout we're going to take a look at is Fletcher's BL21 Power Operative. This is actually one of the best loadout cards out of this set. It's not the best for Fletcher by any means, but it's very, very useful indeed. And similarly to Arty, it actually falls apart with the lack of one augment, which you might consider key on Fletcher. Anyway, looking at the weapons, the primary for this loadout is the Blishlock. Now, the Blishlock is going to split opinions because the shotguns, they are better on Fletcher. However, if you're someone who's a fan of the Blishlock, if you're very accurate with it and you've kind of used it on various other mercs, you can love this gun. It's not a terrible SMG by any means, and it can deal some decent damage if you can land the consecutive headshots. The Totem MP secondary is okay, but actually the BL21 Power Operative first gen version had the Empire 9 as a secondary, and so people might prefer that loadout just for that better secondary. But for me, yeah, the Tolan, it's an okay secondary. It's a machine pistol. It's fairly flexible in that regard. And I guess much like with Arty, I don't feel like you're going to be needing that weapon quite so much, particularly using the Blishlock versus something like a loadout which might use a shotgun, where you might want that kind of slightly longer range option. Anyway, in terms of the actual augments, they're fairly good here. We've of course got the quick draw, which is 30% faster weapon switching. That helps with getting out Fletcher's detonator, actually throwing the sticky bombs as well. Tough, which reduces the delay on health regen by 66%, is a very good augment. It's actually a really, really strong augment. augment that I think people don't realise how useful it is, particularly, you know, if you're playing publics, you're not playing with an organised team, you don't have a medic. Tough really can help you and kind of ensure that you're constantly on the front line, kind of providing damage output. Anyway, the last augment is drilled a 20% reduction to reload time. Very useful indeed. The Blishlock doesn't have the quickest reload speed by any means, and much like Quick Draw and Tough, it really helps kind of create this very combat-ready Fletcher loadout. As I mentioned, there is one augment which I feel like is missing on this, and that is Lock On. Now, Lock On reduces the kind of time to arm Fletcher sticky bombs by about 22%. It's a very strong in that regard, and both the A31 and BL32 have that augment. That said, I don't feel like this loadout card is completely useless, and if I was to say, if you're going to get one of these, this would actually be the one I recommend in terms of the augment strength, because I think it's a very, very good combat card. Whilst it's not the best, it's very usable indeed, particularly, as I already mentioned, if you are a fan of the Blishlock. Anyway, guys, the last loadout we're going to cover here is the T52 Ultra Rifleman. It's, of course, Stoker's card. I've got to say, I think Stoker's skin is one of my favourites along with Fletcher's. I feel like that's slightly better than Arty's in my opinion, but they all look great. And if you're into your unique meshes, I can understand why you'd be a fan of all of these. But in terms of the loadout card, you know, the meat and potatoes here, what does this card offer? The Timic Primary. I've got to be honest, I'm not really a fan of the Timic. It's a high damage output weapon, and I'd say, and I'll stress this, weapons are very, very subjective. If you're someone who loves the Timic on, you know, other mercs like Thunder, Skyhammer, you might love this card. But for me, I'm not the biggest fan. The Desert Eagle and kind of the high damage pistols, I kind of like on snipers for getting more burst damage out to follow up. But in general, you know, the limited magazine size, it kind of limits, I guess, the versatility of the Desert Eagle. However, you have got to remember, Stoker has got the ability to obviously set down an ammo station, so it is very infrequently that you'll need to switch to your Desert Eagle and be relying on it too much. Anyway, in terms of augments, double time allows you to reload while sprinting. Now, this is a problem for me, because if you're someone like me, you might reload cancel, which is the action of sprinting midway through the reload animation in order to cancel it. And whilst you can cancel it in other ways, such as hitting reload a second time, unfortunately, with double time, you can't cancel it by sprinting. Which, if you're someone who really gets in the habit of reload cancelling all the time, it will throw you off, and it threw me off when trying to use this loadout card. In terms of mechanic, it's kind of okay, I guess, the 20% disarm rate and repair time kind of increase. It's an okay augment, but if you're playing in an organised team, you're going to have an engineer. Generally in public play, you're going to have an engineer. It really shouldn't be falling upon your shoulders as Stoker to repair, but it's there. And focus, you know, the reducing flinching is very good in terms of combat, but really the issue for Stoker is there are just some better loadout cards out there, and whilst unlike perhaps other loadout cards that we mentioned before, such as Arty with the lack of Explodedendron and Fletcher with the lack of lock-on, I feel like for Stoker, the fact that he's got the Timic and the Desert Eagle when he's got, of course, access to guns like the M4 really puts me off this card, and for that reason, I can't recommend it purely from a competitive standpoint. But anyway, guys, that is going to wrap up these loadout card reviews. These are just some of my opinions on the actual loadouts themselves. I'm sure people will love these loadout cards. For some people, you know, they'll love all the augments. They'll love the Timic on Stoker, for example. That's fine. I would love to know what you think of the loadout cards. I'll be honest in saying I'm a little bit disappointed with these loadout cards in general. I was really hoping that some of these, when I saw brand new Obsidians, I was hoping that one or two of them would be kind of the tier 1 loadout cards, you know, Fletcher with lock-on, Arty with Explodedendron. Unfortunately, that's not what we've got here. I really hope that is something that we see going forward, because as much as I love these cards, I bought them and I'm sure I'll use them kind of from time to time. Ultimately, when there's cards which are fundamentally better, it kind of makes it difficult to use these loadout cards kind of in competitive play and when I really want to play seriously. Anyway, guys, let me know what you make of the loadout cards down below. Let me know what you make of the aesthetics. Which is your favourite? Get it down there. And let me know if you've bought them as well. I'd be really curious to know, you know, have you considered buying these? Are they too much for you? You may have noticed I didn't want to talk about the price in this video in general for these loadout cards. That's because I think for different people, the amount of money they're willing to spend on Dirty Bomb is completely different. That's completely fine. And also, you may be aware the prices of these loadout cards really do vary depending on where you live in the world. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up everything from me. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. I will see you guys on the next one. And other than that, it is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.